Hello again, and welcome to MasterMind Minutes. My name's Gary Occhigrosso. I am the managing partner for Franchise Growth Solutions. That's this big sign in back of me. You can learn about what we do by clicking on the link above or below this webcast, depending on the platform that you're watching or listening on. I am also the co-publisher of FranchiseMoneymaker.com. That is a franchise and entrepreneurial-based magazine that you can Google and learn all about the franchising and small business world. Mastermind Minutes, for those of you who are joining us for the very first time, is a very simple program, very simple concept. We have one guest and we ask one question and we get one expert answer. Typically it's minutes, definitely not hours. And as we tell folks, it's sort of a tease. It's sort of a preamble to what the guest does and the services they typically provide. So at the end of the program, we will give you all the contact information. And of course, again, it'll be posted up on YouTube and LinkedIn, so you can always contact our guest. Our guest today is Patrick Findaro, and Patrick is the co-founder of Vetted Biz, a leading platform for entrepreneurs seeking accessible and analytical data on franchises and small businesses. Vetted Biz converts complex business material into clear, easy to understand information for new and experienced entrepreneurs. Vetted Business is a sister company of Visa Franchise, a leading advisor for identifying and analyzing U.S. businesses eligible for the E2 investor visa. Visa Franchise has helped 300 entrepreneurs in over 50 countries achieve their dream of owning a U.S. business. Their small businesses, by the way, have created over 2,200 jobs. So today, Patrick, thank you very much for being with us. Before we get to the question, why don't you tell us about Vetted Biz and Visa Franchise and a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get to the question. And thank you for being with us today.
Sure. No, thanks, Gary, so much for having me on. So we started Visa Franchise back in 2015. I started with my brother, Jack. At the time, he was working for the owners of Burger King, which owned Burger King, Tim Hortons, and Popeyes. And I was working at a fund that would lend money to franchisees. And as part of the fund, the investors were eligible for a green card. They could invest $500,000 and get a green card through that investment in the franchising space. During my time at that fund, though, I was only there for a year and a half. I identified a niche where there was a visa class, the E2 investor visa, where you could invest substantially less money than the EB5, anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000 or more in a U.S. business that has 2 to 3 jobs. And with that, you can move to the U.S. as long as you're a treaty member country. There's about 80, most of Europe, a lot of Latin America, Asia are on that list. And with this investment, you can live in the U.S. generally for 5 years and keep renewing the visa as long as the business is open. We naturally thought that franchising made a lot of sense for these foreign entrepreneurs that didn't yet have experience in the U.S., operating businesses, especially in the retail space. It's extremely competitive. And we saw that franchising was a good route where you had an established business model and you had all the support from the franchisor on opening the business, as well as an ongoing basis for marketing, branding, etc. So we started mostly in Latin America, and over the years, as you mentioned, we've really expanded to now I think 58 different nationalities we've supported. And we have 2 very different types of clients for Visa Franchise: those that are owner-operators, where they're going to work day-to-day in the business, and those that are more investor executives, where they're going to have a day-to-day manager or maybe a minority partner that is running the day-to-day operations. So with Visa Franchise, we continue to dominate the market for foreigners seeking to invest in a franchise for the E2 visa. However, franchising only comprises less than 10% of those seeking an E2 investor visa. And the greater percentage of people are buying existing businesses, as well as we had a lot of Americans reaching out to us for insight and information analytics, et cetera, based on the findings that we've done on Visa franchise. So that's when we came up with Vetted Biz, which we launched earlier this year, and we've been working on for over a year, where we have a lot of the data and analytics on all publicly available franchises. So right now it's around 1,700 brands, where we've scrubbed through the most important information in the franchise disclosure document. Also, we've gone through the Small Business Administration loan data, so we can compare industry to industry what industries have a higher paid in full rate and charge, and then also looking at the charge rate to see essentially what the default rate is over the last 30 years for different franchise industries. Mm-hmm. So a lot of really interesting insight, and then also we have existing business listings where we ask for a lot more information from the business broker that they have to validate. So it's much cleaner in terms of the data and information that's on Vetted Biz, as opposed to some other franchise or business portals. So that was probably a long-winded answer to what we do at Visa Franchise and Vetted Biz.
That's great. The idea that you can, really curate so much information that's out there, some good, some not so good, some accurate, some not so accurate, and kind of curate that and kind of get the best and the most reliable information in the hands of a buyer, whether they're buying a franchise or buying an existing business. I think that's a tremendous service. The E2 Visa program, which we've spoken about in the past, I just think that's fantastic because it really, I'm a big believer in, we're a nation of immigrants, and, if somebody wants to, get here and plunk down some money and open a business and create jobs and kind of live the American dream, I'm all for that. I love that. I think that that's endless possibilities to all of that. So, the question that comes to mind, since you're dealing with existing businesses, franchise businesses, businesses that are for people who are here already, businesses for people who want to come here, in light of the whole COVID situation. And it's interesting because most of my clients are in the restaurant business, so you can only imagine some of the turmoil and the hardship that we're dealing with. But as I keep telling them, it's temporary. It's not forever. I do not accept the concept of a new norm. It's a temporary norm. Actually, everything is temporary. Every day is a new day. So with kind of COVID as the backdrop, what do you believe are the most important factors that someone should consider if they're investing in a franchise business today?
For sure. I think the top is getting a very clear understanding of the unit level economics, understanding what the profit margin is going to be, gross profit, as well as the net income of the business, and see how much room there is for shortfalls. And if there's going to be a hit of 20% on revenue, how is that going to affect the business? We like businesses that have either, or hopefully both, high margins. So that could be like a poke bowl concept, juice, ice cream, where it could cost only 15 cents to produce the cup of ice cream, but they sell it for $5. And then also ones that have renewable revenue. So every month, in a barber shop, you can expect to have that same client, or at least 80 to 90% of the clients, similar to real estate, property management, landscaping. Some of these businesses that you have the same client paying every month, and you can have a more junior person servicing those clients, those existing relationships, while generally the owner-operator is out there procuring new business and expanding that portfolio. Franchisors that have at the franchisor level, it should be an industry that's growing, as well as an executive team that has good experience over the years, and look at what they've done in past economic turmoils. And with that, you can look at through the FTD if there's been litigation in the past, any bankruptcies with the brand or any of the principals. So those are some of the most important factors that we look at. in addition to just speaking to other franchisees to see how satisfied they are with the brand. I think that is of utmost importance. And then in the restaurant space, I mean, there's a lot of great opportunities for second generation locations, negotiating hard with landlords. We see that it's taking a lot more time to get the lease done, but it's been more because there's more negotiation, and the franchisee who's going to be opening up the location has a lot more wiggle room in terms of negotiating tenant improvement and other accommodations on the lease.
Yeah, I certainly agree with everything you've said. The restaurant business, there are a lot of opportunities. I mean, we've just recently we've closed 3 deals on restaurants that are now looking at, the franchisees are looking at second generation restaurant space, because in their mind and in reality, you know, the back of the house, the expensive part, the mechanicals, the plumbing, the electrical, the hood, it's in there already. So they get to save a lot of money. When you talk about high margin and profitability, obviously, you know, we're kind of restricted very often by franchise regulation. So when you have a franchise buyer in front of you and, you know, they're interested in a franchise, and, you know, one of the important factors obviously is, you know, return on investment, profitability. How do you navigate that? I mean, because we can't go beyond item 19 in an FDD. Do you walk them through maybe interviewing other existing franchisees of that particular brand?
Yeah, that's generally the best thing, because there's a lot open in terms of how they're running the accounting. You know, we've had clients that when it's a real estate property management franchise, they're going to include their car as part of the upfront investment, and they are using that car to go around to check out the different properties. But there's some different things that, you know, it's like how you needed the car anyways, and you are also using it partly for personal purposes. So it's really important to talk to the franchisees to really understand the numbers. And then in terms of just also understanding the time allocation, if it's a franchise that maybe in the first 18 months requires anywhere from 5 hours a week to 50 hours a week, depending on if it's permitting and they're going through that and there's not much to do and it's more off your hands, or if it's the grand opening and the month before that, the couple months after, where you're working 50, 60 hours a week, you know, how do you have to also factor in that, where we do have many clients that over a 3-year period, they're working 40 to 60 hours a week, and they can recoup their capital in as little as 2 years, even less. But we also have other clients that after the initial startup phase, and once the business breaks even and they're able to start drawing income from the business, then they put in a day-to-day manager, and maybe the return on investment is more like between 4 and 6 years, depending on the type of business.
Right.
So I think you have to really look at the time allocation and how much it would cost for someone with your skill set and abilities to run the business.
Right. Well, that leads me to believe, or it leads me to think about a few things. Again, you know, when we talk about most important factors, which is kind of the topic here, I guess to some extent you're getting into the individual, the potential buyer. You're getting into their lifestyle. You're getting into what their expectations are, what might be a good fit. How do you, again, numbers aside for the moment, what do you delve into to see that, yeah, you could have some great important factors. It's high profitability. It's a great segment, but it's just not good for this person. How do you negotiate that area?
Yeah, so we at Visa Franchise, it's very much a white glove service. For Vetted Biz, we have a lot of the data analytics there. And if you do want to engage our services and take it to the next level where we're holding your hand throughout the process, we can do that. But just talking about Visa Franchise for a while, we have a 40-question questionnaire that the client fills out as part of our intake process, and they get assigned a client service manager. And over the first 2 weeks, we take their profile, which includes their academic background, professional background. Is the spouse going to be helping in the business? What's the spouse's background? What's their investment range? How open they are to different locations. If they really want to be in a particular zip code or within 10 miles, or if they're open to being between Texas, Utah, Florida, wherever. So based on that profile, then we're connecting with franchisors where it's like, hey, this is our client. Is this someone that would have a high chance of success in your system? Would you be interested in having a call with this client? And then if the answer is yes, that might be an opportunity that we present to the client as part of the initial research that we do in that 40 to 50 page research report. But there's a lot of different factors. And we've gotten smarter in terms of seeing the personality and business background that is going to thrive in a particular franchise. Or, you know, there might be some franchises, like even in the education space, after school tutoring, it's very sales heavy, especially in the beginning, where a lot of people that are interested in that are more on the academic operations side. So very quickly, they need to hire someone to help with sales, to complement their skill set. But some franchisors might say, hey, look, you know, we've tried that. We really need someone that has really top relationship skills and selling, consultative selling. Yeah. So it really just depends.
Yeah, and I can speak to that. My personal experience, my very first foray into franchising, I developed a Dunkin' Donuts shop out in Queens back in the 80s when dinosaurs ruled the world. Actually, when we still made donuts in the shop. And I was very fortunate to have a partner who's just really good at like fixing stuff and operations and mechanics. I mean, I've become a restaurant operator over the years, but at that time, you know, I was more front of the house. Let's sell donuts. Let's turn that half a dozen into a dozen type of thing. So if I was left to my own devices, despite any sort of training that Duncan gave at that time, and it was great training, it just would not have, every time I walked into the kitchen, I would like shake because if anything broke or it just wasn't a good fit for me. So I hear you, and I think that's really important. You know, my friend and my associate, Tom Scarda, over at Franchise Academy, you know, he's interested. He tells a, you know, kind of an interesting story about it where, you know, it has to be a good fit all around, philosophically, personally, financially. And he said, you know, just because somebody might be vegan doesn't mean they can't own a McDonald's. If it's a good fit for them on the business side, it's a good fit. So, you know, I hear all of that, and I think there's so much more that people need to look at when they look at a business other than just the P&L and all that other stuff. So, you know, I encourage people who are listening to contact you, get in touch with you. Any last minute thought you'd like to leave us with before I ask you for your contact info?
I think the key is really before you start talking to franchisors, understand what your priorities are and where you are in your career. Is it more of a quality of life thing and you want stability and you don't want to be working at a bigger company and you want to have a stable business that you're drawing income from, but you don't want to be working weekends? Or do you want to work as much as possible and make 200K, 300K plus, and then, you know, maybe eventually put in the day-to-day manager? And also, you know, what's the potential for opening up multiple units? Because especially in the restaurant space where you have a physical location or say a barber shop, you can do well with one location, but to really earn a lot, generally you want to be developing multiple locations, have a regional manager. So I think just really understanding what you're looking for and what your family and career goals are from the onset will make the entire experience of selecting a franchise better.
I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. I mean, success and happiness is based on the expectation going in. You know, we tell folks, you know, inspect, don't expect. Because if you just go in blindly or you're just excited, you know, that wears off the first time something goes wrong. So you have to really be committed to it. So Patrick, if people,
it's like it's a marriage. I mean, they're generally a 10-year contract. So, you know,
it is. And a lot, you know, one of the things we tell prospects. You know, maybe we lose deals as a result, but it's better for clients. We tell folks that, you know, when you buy a house, when you go to the closing and you sign the contract, basically the deal is over. The buyer and the seller usually don't ever see each other again. But when you go to a closing of a franchise and you sign the contract, that's when the deal actually begins. And now you're living with the franchisee, franchisor for 10 years, 15 years, whatever. So it's kind of a unique arrangement. How can, if someone is interested in learning more about Vetted Biz or Visa Franchise, how do they reach you? And again, keep in mind, all of the numbers, the email address will be posted, but why don't you just give it to us here for our audience?
Yeah, the easiest is going through our website, www.vettedbiz.com or www.visafranchise.com. And then we can be emailed at either one, info@vettedbiz.com or info@visafranchise.com. That's generally the easiest way to reach out to us. And from there, internally, we'll get back to you within 24 hours with the best member of our team to see if we can be of service.
That's great. That's great. And that's easy enough to remember. Vettedbiz.com, visafranchise.com. That, you know, that'll get you to Patrick one way or another, for sure. Again, Patrick, I wanna, you know, remind you that we'll be, you know, amplifying this on LinkedIn. It'll be on YouTube. It's on 6 or 7 podcast channels, including Spotify, Google, and Apple. We also posted on our franchisemoneymaker.com magazine, which gets emailed out to about 80,000 subscribers. So hopefully somebody will give you a call. They'll have a question, and they'll realize how important the work you do really is for them in the event they're looking to get involved in a business. So thank you very much for being with us today. I truly appreciate it.
Oh, Gary, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you.